Hi, and welcome to my channel. Or if you're a returning subscriber, hi again. It's so nice to see you back here for another video. My name's Tess Lark, and today I'm going to show you how you can make these really cute fairy wing earrings using UV resin, some glitter, and also some alcohol ink. As always, I'll have all of the materials that I use linked in the description. Poe says hi too. Poe, say hello. Alright. But as I was saying, all of the materials that I use for this project will be linked in the description down below, so all of that information will be down there for you. And let's just hop into today's project. Also, really quickly, I would just like to say thank you so much for 5K subscribers on here. I'm so excited. Thank you to everybody who has hit that little subscribe button. It really and truly does mean the world to me. At the time of editing this video, I'm at 5K and I am just over the moon excited. So thank you guys so very much. But the very first step in my project is going to be to paint all of these little veins that are within the fairy wings. So I have my silicone mold here and I'm using a paint pen. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that I really do love these Deco Premium Color paint pens. They're super metallic and really easy to use. So I'm using the color gold here and I'm just taking my time to go and carefully paint all of those little lines inside of the wings. When you're painting your wings, you want to make sure that you're using a pretty light touch because you don't want to get any of the paint where it shouldn't be or outside of those little lines. However, if you do get a little glob, I found that you can take a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the end of a Q-tip and it comes off pretty nicely that way, but then you do have to sort of touch up any other little pieces that come off when you're cleaning up your lines. In this particular mold though, all of the veins are raised, so after a little bit of practice and with just a light touch, it's pretty easy to get a clean result the first time. I also won't be using every single little piece in this mold for this project. I'm just using the 2 pairs of wings that I'm drawn to the most. And after I've got all of the lines drawn into my wings, I'm going to give them a moment to dry completely before I pour my first layer of resin. Let me know in the comments if there's a different paint pen that you guys like or a different way that you like to paint your molds. Let me know, I'm always curious to learn from you guys. For this project, I'll be using some UV resin by Let's Resin, and thank you so much to Let's Resin for sending me this starter UV resin kit. I've used it in a couple of my other videos. It's really easy to use. I love that there's this nozzle on the resin, and overall, I don't have any complaints with this UV resin. UV resin is also really nice to use because it cures within a few minutes with the use of a UV light, as opposed to epoxy resin that typically takes about 24 hours to cure completely. You can finish a resin project in the same day you start it when you're using UV resin. I'll be pouring these wings in 3 different layers. So this first layer, I'm really just focusing on getting a thin layer of that resin down, and I'm making sure that it's going to cover the entire piece. So starting with the edges and kind of working my way into the middle. Again, it is pretty viscous, so you want to give it some time for it to level out and end up where it's going to be. I'm also using my heat gun not only to pop the air bubbles that are forming in the resin, but also to warm up the resin to make it a little bit less viscous and a bit more liquidy. So as you can see, it's easier to get into all those little small nooks and crevices on the sides of these molds. And just to make sure I've really gotten into all of those little cracks and crevices, I'm using a silicone tool. Once again, this little tool came in that UV resin starter kit from Let's Resin, which I will have linked down below. But it's a really great tool just to make sure that I've got all those little nooks and crevices, especially at the top where I'm going to later attach hardware to make them into wearable pieces. So I'm just using that to drag my resin around and make sure that it's touching the edges of each mold. And then when I'm ready, I can go ahead and just lay that little tool down next to my mold and cure it all together so I can pop that resin off of that mold, or pop the resin off of the tool, I should say, and then reuse the tool. The light that I'm using also came with the kit and has an automatic timer. I believe it's either 30 seconds or a minute, but it goes off on its own. And when I'm curing my UV resin pieces, I do like to cure them several times before moving on to the next step because you want the light to be able to penetrate through the piece. So I'm going to cure them on this side a few times, and then I'm also going to flip the mold over and cure them a few times that way too. And it's extremely important that you go ahead and you flip over your mold to cure them from the other side as well, just so you can make sure that it's really cured between where the mold meets the resin, because if it's not completely cured, then when you go to pull your pieces out of the mold, you're going to lose all of those little gold lines and all of that detail that we worked for earlier. So make sure you're flipping your mold over and curing it from the back as well. And I'm going to cure it this way for another 3 to 4 times. Again, just really taking your time, making sure that it's completely cured before moving on to the next step. And I'm going to cut a lot of this footage, especially when I cure the later layers, but I did want to stress it here to make sure that this part is completely cured before you move on, or once again, you'll lose all of those gold details. Now that this first layer is completely cured, I'm going to go ahead and add some glitter and some color to these pieces. So first layering in some more of my clear resin, once again starting at the edges and working my way into the center. And I don't know if anybody's ever made icing for cookies, but you know how royal icing sort of over time levels out, so you don't need to worry about like tiny little gaps in your icing. It's the same for this UV resin. It's going to level out, so don't worry about getting it completely full on the first pour. And for this layer, once again, I'm using my heat gun and that little tool, again, just to make sure that the resin is in all of those little nooks and crannies and touching the edges of each piece of this mold. The first color combination that I want to make is these black wings with this kind of iridescent gold or orangey glitter. So I'm just using a pair of tweezers and taking some of that chunky glitter and layering it down in my piece. And I kind of like when the glitter is heavier at the bottom and then kind of trails upwards. So I'm focusing the majority of my glitter at the bottom of each one of my molds. I've also found that a little bit of glitter goes a long way for these, especially because I can use my little tool to just kind of fan some of that glitter out and get it to be where I want it to be. In the final piece, I do want you to be able to see the details of all of the little lines that we drew in earlier, so I like a little bit of a minimal glitter approach. And next I'll be adding my color. So I'm using the black from Pinata Colors. I just put 2 drops of that into a small container, added a little bit of that UV resin, and then I'm just mixing it up with the end of that silicone tool. And as you can see here, a little bit of that pigment goes a really long way. So I've just got a little bit of that pigmented resin on the edge of my tool, and I'm using that to start at the uppermost tip of the wing and just kind of fan some of that color out throughout the piece. I won't be taking that color all the way down though, because I do want the ends of the wings to still be translucent. So just keeping that in the upper quarter or even the top third of each one of my molds. I'm also curious to know, have you used this mold before? Have you used it in a similar way to what I'm doing now, or how did you use it? Did you use it for earrings or necklaces? Have you seen anything that's similar to this piece? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to know what you guys are working on. But after I'm happy with how this color is looking, I'm going to go ahead and cure these one more time. And I will spare you the boredom of just watching this light come on and off again for like 3 to 4 minutes. But just know that I'm being really, really thorough, making sure that these are completely cured before moving on to the next step. And next to these, I'm going to add one more layer of clear resin. Again, starting on the outside, working my way to the center, and I will be heating them up and using that little tool to make sure that I've got all of those little nooks and crevices accounted for. And I'm going to tell you guys a little story. Well, it's not really a story, but I was going through a bit of a creativity rut, and I couldn't seem to pull myself out of it no matter what I was doing. But I started reading a new series of books. Maybe you've heard of them. I'm reading ACOTAR right now. Well, I should say that I just finished the ACOTAR series, and it had me so inspired that I just decided that I wanted to make jewelry for the fae. So that's kind of the inspiration for these pieces. Let me know if you've read those books in the comments below. I'm currently very deep in the Sarah J. Maas universe, and I refuse to leave it. So after I finish the ACOTAR series, I have started on Crescent City, and so far I am in love. Anyway, just a little tidbit. But so I'm just making sure that these are completely full, all the molds are full, and then I will cure these once more using my UV light. And now that my pieces are completely cured, I'm going to pop them out of their molds and see how they turned out. And I think that they're so cute. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I personally like this side of them where I have that layer of clear resin because the wings, the little lines in the wings, the veins are a little bit more abstract, but both sides are really pretty in my opinion. After I've removed all of these pieces from my mold, I'm going to go ahead and cure them one more time outside of the mold, facing up, so the back side is facing the light. And that's just because it's sort of hard for the light to penetrate through the mold itself, and I want to make sure that they're completely cured. To make my pink wings, I went ahead and off camera did that first layer, and I'm pretty much going to be repeating the same process here. So I'm filling these up once more with some resin, and to that I'll be adding my pigment, but this time I'll be using pink and this pretty pink glitter. And let me know what color or color combination you'd want to see next. And again, with these, I'm gonna concentrate the color at the top third part of the piece, and then I will cure them completely and layer one more layer of clear resin on them before removing them from the molds. And now that I've got these pieces cured, I'm once again going to go ahead and pull them out of their molds. Look how pretty these are. I can't decide at this point which ones I like better. I thought at the time of filming this video that I really liked the black ones most, but right now, these pink ones are so pretty as well. So once again, curing those outside of their molds. And then our last step will be to attach these to some hardware so we can make them into wearable earrings. To do that, I've got these large jump rings, and I'll be using some jewelry pliers to hold those in place, as well as to open that. So holding them in place with one pair of my pliers and using the other set to open that ring up. And then there's a pre-drilled hole at the top there, and I'm just gonna slip that jump ring right through the top and then use my pliers to close that and make sure it's really nice and tight and tightly secured. Once I have that jump ring secured, I'm going to take a smaller jump ring and I will be attaching it onto that first larger jump ring. So I've got my smaller ring here, and I'm just going to attach it to that hoop at the top. But before I close this jump ring, I'm also going to attach an earring hook. So my earring hook is going onto one side of that jump ring, and then once again using my pliers to close that. And I do have a couple other videos here on YouTube with jewelry fabrication. So if that's something that you're looking for, some things like with wire wrapping or even how to drill resin, I'll make sure to list a couple of those videos down below in the description as well. So make sure to check those out after you're done with this video. Alright, so now I've got all of my pieces finished up, and I actually ended up making a pair of these in blue as well. I could not help myself, they're just so cute. Overall, I'm so happy with how this project came out, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it in the comments down below. Personally, I think my favorites are the black ones that look like butterfly wings, but definitely let me know which your favorites are in the comments as well. I'll also be listing these pieces in my Etsy, which I will link down below as well. As always, I really hope that this video inspires you to make something of your own today. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me some sort of food emoji in the comments just to confuse anyone who didn't make it this far. And thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!